My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty.
Zohran Mamdani's victory in the November 4th election not only makes him the leader of the Big Apple, it also turns him, for better or worse, into one of the most high-profile Democrats in the country. Hello and welcome to USA Today's The Excerpt. I'm Dana Taylor. New York mayors always command national attention because of their role running America's biggest city. Mamdani won't take office until January, but for months his face has been splashed across Americans' television screens and news feeds. He's the mayor-elect of New York. Will he also be America's mayor? Here to help me dig into what this election might mean for the nation as a whole, I'm now joined by USA Today national correspondent Michael Collins. Michael, thanks so much for joining me on The Excerpt.
Thanks for having me.
Michael, Mamdani has the national spotlight after his historic win in the New York City mayoral race. Not only is he the first Democratic socialist to win office in New York, he's also a member of Gen Z. Tell me why that's important for the Democrats here.
It's important for the Democrats because they have been in the political wilderness ever since Kamala Harris lost the presidential election of Donald Trump last year. They've been trying to find a message that will win back voters who abandoned them, particularly working-class voters. And they're looking to see if Mamdani's message during the campaign might provide some sort of pathway for them.
Mamdani really doubled down on messaging voters on affordability issues and how he's going to address it. Could this be a lifeline for Democrats in next year's midterms?
Well, Democrats certainly think so. You have to remember that affordability, which is one of the issues that Mamdani emphasized during his campaign, that this is a concern not only in New York, but in cities all across the country. People are worried about the cost of housing. They think it's too high. They're worried that groceries are too expensive. And Mamdani talked about all these things during his campaign, and his victory showed that he was successful. So Democrats think that if he can sell that message in New York, then maybe it just might work in other campaigns too as they start to look ahead to next year's midterm congressional elections and the 2028 presidential contest.
Michael, was Mamdani able to rally the party behind him? I know there were some holdouts among Democrats in New York. Senator Chuck Schumer, for one, didn't endorse Mamdani.
I think for the most part, he was able to get Democrats behind him. But as you said, there were some notable holdouts, Senator Chuck Schumer being probably the most prominent. And the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, who is from Brooklyn, he kind of held out for a little while, but eventually gave his endorsement to Mamdani. But he didn't do that until late in the campaign. And there have been some Democrats who've been really concerned about the image that Mamdani's victory gives to the party. Republicans have been saying for years that Democrats are trying to push a socialist agenda on the country. And now New York has just elected a socialist mayor. So some Democrats are really worried the message that sends and how it could play across the country.
The New York Times has reported that former President Barack Obama put in a call of support to Mamdani over the weekend. Obama obviously still wields enormous influence in the Democratic Party. Could this signify a shift to more socialist policies from the Dems?
I think it's going to be a while before we really know the answer to that. Look, Democrats have always liked to say that the New York mayor's race really doesn't mean much outside of New York. But they're going to be analyzing this win to see if they've moved too far to the left or whether the country might be ready to embrace the kind of policies, the kind of left of center policies that Mamdani talked about during his campaign. So I think that it's just going to be a little while before we know the answer to that.
Mamdani beat former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. What might that mean for Democrats here?
I think that's hard to say because one of the things that you've got to keep in mind is that Andrew Cuomo, in many respects, came into this race with a lot of baggage. He was the governor, but he resigned from the governor's office over questions about whether or not he had sexually harassed multiple women. And a lot of Democrats didn't want him to run for mayor in the first place because of all of these issues. So I'm not sure we can really read too much into his loss and what that might mean for Democrats in the future.
Michael, Republicans have been happy to demonize the mayor-elect now that Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi are largely off the center stage. Could this strategy backfire?
Republicans don't think so. And you've got to remember, this has worked for them in the past, and they think it'll work again. going as far back as the 2010 congressional races, they won back the House by making Nancy Pelosi the symbol of everything that they claimed was wrong with America. It worked. And so they think that, Mamdani is their new boogeyman. They think they can use him as an example of the leftist policies that they say Democrats are trying to enforce on the rest of the country. And they're gonna try that.
How are Republicans likely to come after him?
Well, what they're going to try to do is make him the face of the Democratic Party. They're going to be tying him to Democratic candidates in congressional races all across the country. They're going to be saying, if you vote for Democrats, this is what you get. Just a few weeks ago, the National Republican Congressional Committee, which is an organization that works to elect Republicans to the U.S. House, they put out a strategy memo showing that how they are going to make him the villain in next year's key battleground races, and how they're going to really come after the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, for his late-term endorsement of Mamdani. As they note in this particular memo, they say, this isn't about one race in New York. It's a national story of a party bending the knee to socialism and the far left. And that's what their message is going to be, that, his election is a sign of what will happen if you elect Democrats to these congressional races.
Let's get into some of the specific policies that Mamdani has so far championed around affordability. What has he said he'll do?
Well, as we said, he has made affordability one of the cornerstones of his campaign. So he's talked about, the high cost of food. He's talked about creating a network of city-run grocery stores to help fight food prices. He suggested a pilot program where there would be 5 stores that would be exempt from rent and property taxes, and those stores would sell groceries at wholesale prices. He's also talked about the high cost of housing. He's suggested freezing the rent for tenants who live in rent-stabilized apartments. He's talked about building more affordable housing, and he suggested free childcare for every New Yorker between the ages of 6 weeks and 5 years.
Mayor-elect Mamdani is on a collision course with President Donald Trump. They seem to not be able to stop talking about each other. What's going on there?
Well, what's going on is, as you know, Donald Trump was born and raised in New York, and he made his mark in the city through real estate. This was, of course, before he entered politics. So he has taken a real interest, an unusual interest in this mayoral race. He has been just criticizing Mamdani for weeks now. He at one point referred to him as a 100% communist lunatic. He said that he's even suggested that he might withhold funding from the city if Mamdani is elected. He has said Mamdani wants to destroy New York, and he's not going to let him do that America is never going to be a communist in any way, shape, or form, and that includes New York City. And he's even suggested that he might look at Mamdani's immigration status. You may remember that Mamdani was born in Uganda. He moved to the United States with his parents when he was a young child, and he became a U.S. citizen after graduating college. So Trump has suggested that maybe they'll just look at his immigration status and see whether or not that's legal. Now, for his part, Mamdani has kind of thrown an olive branch out to the president in the last few weeks of the campaign. He said, look, I'm willing to work with Donald Trump on issues that we both care about, issues like affordability and cost of living issues. But he has said that, he is going to stand strong, and he's going to fight Trump on issues like immigration raids. He said that he would remind New Yorkers of their rights. He would uphold the city's sanctuary city policies, and that he's not going to bend on that.
Michael, a lot of our listeners don't live in New York. They live in places like Texas, Ohio, and Arizona. Why should they care about New York City's next mayor?
Mamdani's election in New York makes him, for better or worse, one of the most prominent Democrats in the country. And when you have that kind of high profile that he's going to have, you often have a lot of influence within the party. So many of the issues that he's talked about in the campaign are issues that are a major concern in cities all across the country. And so Americans should not be surprised if some of the issues that helped Mamdani win New York become major issues in the races in their home states or in their congressional districts.
Michael, what's the biggest takeaway on Mamdani's win that you want to leave us with?
I think that this is not just about New York. You're going to be hearing a lot more about him once he starts to try to do some of the things that he has talked about doing. And people should really pay close attention to see if Democrats and Republicans start talking about these same issues in state and congressional races. And if they do, it's going to be really interesting to see what went over well in New York, whether or not it will go over well in the rest of the country.
Michael, it's so good to have you on The Excerpt.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching. I'm Dana Taylor. I'll see you next time.